Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Openly Occultic Book Club. We've been reading the Complete Book of Numerology, Discovering the Inner Self by David A. Phillips. Really, we just began, but this is enlightening for sure. This is very much enlightening. I'm so glad that you guys are here with me, going over this with me, learning about this. Um, I, I don't think you could do wrong by learning about your unique energetic makeup, right? Because that's what this is about. We're learning about our own particular energetic makeup. And so, in learning about numerology, we're seeing how numbers have their own frequency, right? We're learning that. And we're very much into energy work here at the Openly Occultic Book Club. Very much into learning about how to have a higher quality of life, learning about the reality around us, learning about how this reality works, and come to find out everything is frequency and magnetism, right? So, what I enjoyed reading about this was, well, let me show you what I mean. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Because up until now, when I was learning about numerology, I didn't learn it with this grid that we see here on the screen, right? I learned my numerology by just adding up my birth date, getting that number, and then adding those digits together, getting those numbers, and then adding those digits together, and you're basically reducing it down to a single digit, right? So you often hear me say, I'm a life path number 7. I'm a life number 7, right? By way of 34. And I also have a great friend. She also is a life number 7 by way of 34, right? So, and we just added that, I added the birth date numbers up, reduced it down to a single digit, and the two digits before the single digit is why I say, well, I'm a life number by way of 34, because there's many ways you can get to a life number 7, right? You can get 7 by adding 6 and 1, 5 and 2, uh, you know what I mean? Like 4 and 3 and 4. So it's different. So you have a frequency. Each of these numbers has a frequency. And that's what we've been reading about here. Well, we only got to number 1, and we only began number 1, right? So, first of all, before we jump back into the book, this is the grid we're talking about. You too can just write out a tic-tac-toe square on a piece of paper and fill in the squares where your birth dates. You know what I mean? Like I'm June 19, 1980. So I put in a 6, I put in a 19, the 1. These squares, this is where the 1 square is. This is where the 2 square is. This is where the 3. So if you have multiple 1s or multiple 2s or what have you, whatever the case, you just add a second digit to that square. So for instance, when we were reading last time, when I was reading about what happens or what it is to have one number 1 in your square, I was reading it and I was like, wow, this is interesting. I need to do my square immediately so I know how many ones I have. And I told you guys, you could meet me in the Openly Occultic Book Club chat room, right? And we can discuss these things further. The chat room's open 24 hours a day. More and more people are joining. And you can get a free copy of this book, a PDF of this book that we're reading, just by meeting me in the book club chat room saying, hey, can you give me a copy of the book that you're reading? And I will email you a copy of the book that we're reading. But you got to come, you got to ask, right? So, but as we look at this square, we see what's going on here. The bottom level is the physical plane, dealing with the basic self, the practicalness of it, doing things, right, in your human body. The next one is the high self, the soul plane, dealing with spirituality, feelings, and what have you. And then the top row is the conscious self, the mind plane, dealing with mental and thinking. So this was new to me. I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow. So I ended the last show after reading just about the having one number 1 in your one box, right? So that's not me. I actually have 2 number 1s. Come to find out, right? June, that's 6. 19, that's a 1 and a 9. 1980. So that's 2 1s and 2 9s. right? And an 8. So, no, I didn't have one one. I have two ones, and we're about to jump into it because I need to know what that means, right? What does it mean to have one number one? So we're going to jump back into this book. I'm thankful that you guys are here with me. Um, if you could, while I have you here, before we jump in, if you could make sure to like, share, and subscribe, right? Let other people know about this channel. Once you start liking the video, the algorithm says, hey, there are people that are into this type of stuff. Let me show this video to other people. So that way we can get more viewers, more people learning about this stuff. And this is how we can do what we can to create the world we want to live in, right? Because if this is all true, and meet me in the comments if you have an opinion on whether or not numerology is real or not, let's talk about it. But if it is true, then we could actually have an easier life than we do. If we know about this stuff, life could be easier. And there's only one way that you'll know what I'm talking about, and that is if we go ahead and read it, right? Let's read it. Make sure to check out the last video to see what it is to have one number one in your box. But now, if you have two number ones, like me, and let me know if you're my twin, right? It says, blessed with the gift of balanced self expression, people with two ones are the most fortunate people. It is a valuable birth chart characteristic that should always be used wisely. Never abuse it for manipulative purposes, which means always take care to avoid intolerance of people who are not so fortunate, especially if you're in love with someone that doesn't have two ones, right? This is a gift of balanced self expression. So if other people don't have it, don't be mean to them, right? Don't be manipulative. Don't be intolerant. Don't be toxic, right? And that's something to remember because apparently this is a fortunate gift to have, a fortunate frequency to have in your energetic makeup, right? The person with two ones is often able to see both sides of a situation or argument, and it's not uncommon for them to take the other side midway through a discussion if it should appear suddenly to be more valuable or valid, right? If it should suddenly appear more valid, they'll switch sides in the middle of a conversation, right? They'll say, you know what, you're right. I'm with you, and now you're preaching to the choir, right? I've lived this life. This is my life, so I know, right? It says this makes for an extremely broad understanding of situations and people. Okay, cool. Many successful politicians and other public figures are found to have two ones. It tends to heighten humanitarian awareness and expression and the ability to see both sides of any problem. Good to know. I noticed that about myself. I thought it was because I was a Gemini, because I am a Gemini, right? So I thought that was why. But no, according to numerology, it's because I have two number ones in my birth chart. Numerological birth chart, right? Not your natal chart, your number birth chart. Okay, that's this little square grid we're talking about. Okay, well, what about if you have three ones? There are two distinctly different types of expression here. The most frequently encountered is the talkative type, the chatterbox, who is invariably bright and interesting and likes to be involved in many and varied activities. See, if I would have read that without knowing my little box, I would have thought that I had three ones because I can be talkative. I could be a chatterbox. Like I said, I'm a Gemini. So, but no, I don't have three ones. So there's people who talk more than me. Thank you. You know, they generally find life enjoyable and seek to share that enjoyment with others. The second group comprises a minority who also have no numbers on the soul plane. So they have three ones, but they don't have any numbers on the soul plane. There's no 2, there's no 5, and there's no 8. talking about these people, right, with three ones. They don't typically have any numbers. Not all of them, some of them. It's a minority within the group of people that have three number ones. If they do, some of them have numbers on the soul plane, but a small minority of them don't. Well, what about those people? Those people that don't have numbers on the soul plane, but do have three number ones, those people are generally quiet, somewhat introspective, and occasionally shy, especially with strangers. However, they do tend to become perky and talkative in friendly company when they feel at ease. These people find that they can express themselves better through writing, where their thoughts flow more freely, uninhibited by their acute sensitivity. Hmm, okay. So they're acutely sensitive. I think there's a pattern that's going to unfold as we read this because we're talking about if you have one number one and then, oh, let's double that vibration. Let's triple that vibration. Let's quadruple that vibration. And what happens when you double, triple, right? We just tripled it and we see that there's a little bit of they're a little bit more withdrawn. Well, what happens when you have four, right? Because the three, they're a little bit more withdrawn and they're a little bit more sensitive. What happens when you have four number ones? People with four number ones experience difficulty with verbal expression and are therefore often misunderstood. So we're dealing with expression. What was it with the number one? The one number one? The two one number ones, you have a gift of balanced self expression, right? The one number one, either way, people with a number one have some difficulty in verbal self expression. And it just heightens the more and more ones you got going in your chart, okay? Birth dates with a single one belong to people who have some difficulty in verbal self expression. So that's the theme of the number one, right? Verbal self expression, okay? So if you have two, you have the gift of balanced self expression. If you have three, things are getting a little, dicey. There's one group that have a good time and are able to talk and express themselves. They're bright, interesting, like to be involved in a lot of stuff. They find life enjoyable and seek to share that enjoyment with others. But there's a small group within those with the three number ones. And that small group, they're having a slightly harder time, if you will. But they find that they can express themselves better through writing, where their thoughts flow more freely and they're uninhibited by their sensitivity, their acute sensitivity. So now, once you get to four number ones, these people experience difficulty with verbal expression and are therefore more often misunderstood. Can we see why that would be the case, knowing that there's a pattern unfolding here? But life soon teaches them to hide emotional turmoil with a smile, though they tend to suffer inwardly unless they learn to release such emotions and not strongly identify with them. Hmm. So they have difficulty with verbal expression. Society's taught them to just smile, so they kind of suffer because they're not letting those emotions go. A strong egocentricity, these people identify with those for whom they share deep feelings, but they don't easily verbalize such feelings. For their personal happiness and that of the people who are close to them, it is important for people with four ones to take command of their emotions. As they relax more and more and improve in self confidence, they'll feel less inhibited and become freer to express rather than suppress their inner feelings. So now we're getting tips on how to navigate life with with that energetic makeup, with that frequency of four ones. The tip is take command of your emotions. And as you practice that and become more and more relaxed with expressing them, you'll improve in self confidence. You'll start feeling freer, right? And you'll be able to express yourself. You won't be dealing with all the suppression, which can cause kidney stones and all kind of other issues, right? Make sure that you, if you do have issues with your emotions, there's other tools that you can use, right? I want us to know that there's plenty of tools you can use to help you along the way. But obviously, the first thing is to get the knowledge, right? First of all, we're reading about it, and that's an important step, but it's only half the battle, okay? So now that you have this information, what can you do with it? Now that you know that you have a hard time dealing with your emotions, there's plenty of herbs, plenty of crystals that you can incorporate into your lifestyle, right? On the Cedar Grove Herbs website, you can jump into talk to the chat bot, right? I have a chat bot there down in the left hand corner. Just click it open, click on customer service. My AI chatbot that I got programmed is called CPOC, and you could ask it any question. Say, hey, what crystals do you have to help me with my emotions? What herbs do you have to help me with my emotions? Something about the nervous system is definitely going to come up. Chamomile, skullcap, rosemary, just different herbs that you can use, blue vervain, to help with your nervous system, which will absolutely relax you, help you get into a more calmer meditative state, which might help you better verbalize how you feel, right? So just don't forget to ask the chatbot if you need to what herbs or what crystals you can use, you can take, you can purchase for your emotions. And then, of course, we always got discounts going. You use the code Pure Love, all caps, no spaces, PURELOVE, and you'll get 15% off your first order, right? So that code is always there for everybody to use. And we're glad to know that we have tools available. Obviously, the problem is people don't even know about these things. A lot of people don't even know. So this is why we're doing our humanitarian effort by reading these type of books so that we can start to learn. Education is a big part of our mission here. Okay? Now, what if you have 5 or more ones? We saw things are getting more and more dicey, more and more difficult, right? More and more of a challenge. We'll say that, right? Um, with 5, 6, or 7 ones on the birth chart, ego suppression is created to counteract the basic difficulty with verbal expression. Ego suppression is created to counteract the basic difficulty with verbal expression. Young can indeed be quite sad as they are often misunderstood. I don't know, it's a typo. You can indeed be quite sad. They can indeed be quite sad as they are often misunderstood. People with 4 or 5, 5, 6, or 7 ones can be quite sad because they're often misunderstood, right? They have difficulty with verbal expression. We can see that. And what happens of that? What comes of that? Well, that creates aloofness, which leads in turn to increasing loneliness, right? They can become somewhat obsessive about their appearances and actions and often have lots of mirrors at home, which they tend to cover up, right? Least people think that they're egocentric, yet they secretly adore looking at themselves. And such egoism and deception can readily lead to mental imbalances. Fortunately, we know that the occurrence of 7 ones at a birth date is extremely rare, right? Now, you can help children with multiple ones elevate their consciousness by getting them involved in an art form such as writing, painting, pottery, or music, and so on. This applies to all children, irrespective of age. And listen, what about your inner child, right? Grown ups too. This applies to everybody, really. You know what I'm saying? To help you elevate your consciousness, to help you not be so ostracized due to lack of verbal expression, because you don't always have to talk with your mouth. You can paint, you can make pottery, you can speak through your music. These things, you know what I'm saying? It's still communication. So they just got to learn to communicate in other ways. And you can start teaching them from a young age, but you're never too late to learn these things, right? And you're happy when you learn it. You're like, man, now I understand why. Okay, what do I need to do to make life better for myself? And you start to reach out for different tools, learning about different tools. The occurrences of seven ones in a birth date is extremely rare, fortunately appearing no more than once a century through the 20th century. Hmm. What date is that? I don't know. But okay. So on to the number two. Located at the gateway of the soul plane, right? Let's see. Located at the gateway of the soul plane, right? Mm-hmm. The number two is the key to intuition, sensitivity, and feeling. After the number one and nine, two is the most common found in birth dates of the 20th century, right? And will clearly be the most common number of the 21st century. To possess a two on your birth chart is indeed a blessing, for it provides you with a valuable guide to the degree of your sensitivity and intuition. So, number two is we're dealing with sensitivity and intuition. As these faculties develop, you acquire an enhanced understanding of yourself, other people, life, and all creation. Okay? As those born in the 21st century grow to maturity and take increased responsibility in human affairs, the 20th century's headlong crusade into egocentricity and ambition will give way to intuitive sensitivity to world affairs. Beautiful. You can see how that would happen, right? You can see that. People born with a two will also witness great honor and fairness in business dealings and increased concern in domestic affairs and friendships. Meanwhile, do not assume that birth dates without a number two indicate a total absence of intuition and sensitivity. Rather, it simply suggests that these traits need to be developed. Okay? Good to know. Birth charts with a single two indicate a sound, basic level of intuition, but not always enough in this highly competitive world, especially for men. With so much emphasis on artificial values in social, artistic, and commercial expression today, individuals must be tuned in to successfully compete. And this cannot be properly achieved without a high degree of balanced sensitivity, right? Sensitivity to the collective consciousness. To be able to tune in to the collective consciousness, the ethers, you got to have a degree of sensitivity to be able to. This is like a psychic gift. If you're sensitive, that means you can pick up on energy, auras, frequencies. You can pick up on vibes. You're sensitive to your environment. How are you sensitive to your psychic? A little bit. You know what I mean? That's what's going on here. So that's how you could tune in. A little telepathic, a little clairvoyant, a little psychic. You can feel. And yeah, so you have to have a high degree of balanced sensitivity to be able to tap in, basically. Without the balance, sensitive natures can be easily hurt, though, often resulting in unwise reactions. This is more so with men than with women. Now, a single two provides a valuable foundation for developing balanced sensitivity. But the balanced double two offers the ideal qualities. Women possess a de facto two on their birth chart, for their very natures are more highly sensitive and intuitive than that of men. Thus, with a single two on their birth chart, women are blessed with the equivalent of the balanced double two, whereas men have to diligently practice developing balanced sensitivity. Their single 2 is a great starting point, right? For women. If a woman has a single 2, according to this book, if a woman just has 1 2 in her little tic-tac-toe grid, that's basically a double 2. Okay? That's what it's saying. It says, in general, people with one number 2 on their birth chart have found that they need ample time to relax and spend time in nature away from the intensity of competitive living. An individual's ruling number is the most reliable guide for how to do this. See Chapter 7. Okay. Okay. Now, what if you have two number 2s? I don't have any 2s. Hmm. Right, but then it said just because you don't have a 2 doesn't mean, there's something wrong with you. Um, Even if you don't have a number 2, that doesn't indicate a total absence of intuition and sensitivity. Rather, it simply suggests that these traits need to be developed, right? So I don't have any 2s. But what about you? Do you have two 2s? Because it's gonna tell us what that means. It says, as already explained, the balance of the second 2 on the birth chart is a great advantage, providing the ideal quality for the easy development of intuitive sensitivity. Even so, people with two 2s must use it appropriately and recognize that any virtue not used invariably deteriorates, right? So use your gift or it'll go away, right? An innate perception endows those people with an intelligence that is above the average, based on an acute natural ability to understand people and circumstances. They possess an amazingly reliable guide when it comes to first impressions, almost instant, and accurate opinions for people, excuse me, and accurate opinions of people and concepts are often made. Sincerity or insincerity in others is thereby easily detected. Right? If you got two number 2s, you can easily see whether somebody's being sincere or not. So long as your ego and imagination don't interfere and color your basic intuition, right? The balanced intuitive sensitivity of these people, if positively expressed, tends to draw them to become involved in many aspects of human affairs. They generally do so with significant success, but need to guard against the tendency of becoming too available for too many worthy causes. This could be the detriment of their personal happiness at home. As always, balance is the key to their success, right? Wholeness and balance, family. Wholeness and balance. So these are sensitive people. They have intuition and they're sensitive. And this is a gift, they can tap in, with these gifts. But now what happens if you have three number 2s? Because we know the frequency is getting stronger and stronger, right? If you're doubling it up, tripling up that frequency, what happens? We're dealing with intuition and sensitivity. So I can guess that you'll be more sensitive, more intuitive. Let's see. Once we move beyond the beam of the balance, as Pythagoras symbolically phrased it, right? The number 2 is the beam of the balance, right? It's a balance. That double 2, they say it is very balanced. But once we move beyond that, we uncover excess. 3 2s on the birth chart indicate an unbalanced sensitivity, a hypersensitivity that can become quite an emotional load to carry for some people. It indicates that the person is highly attuned to the feelings of others, right? Resulting in a ready inclination to become deeply involved in other people's problems, right? Because they can feel it. As a form of sensitive self protection, these people have the tendency to spend much of their time in a world of their own feelings, thereby exhibiting an aloofness that can lead to loneliness. Many people with three number 2s work in the entertainment field, where they achieve remarkable success. sensitively portraying other characters, right? Hmm. However, difficulty in expressing deep personal feelings also arises from such sensitivity, leading to hurts. So now you have a hard time expressing deep personal feelings here because of the sensitivity. They then tend to become defensive and impulsively say hurtful things because they're on the defense because they're so sensitive. We can see how this can be the case. Right? Can you see this, family? The logic of it? Children with three number twos often become great imitators, as it is so natural for them to share the sensitivities and feelings of others without realizing it. Right? They're kids, they're brand new. So if your child is an imitator, they're always imitating. Let's draw out their chart. Do they have a bunch of number twos? Do they have three number twos? However, success coping with life's emotional roller coaster will be largely under the charge of their parents, whose most constructive role is to assist their children in achieving a solid basis of self confidence in line with the path indicated by the child's ruling number. We'll learn more about that in chapter 7. Okay. And now, what about if you have four number twos? We know what's happening here, we see it. Such a high level of impressionability has to be carefully and continuously disciplined, or it will easily erupt into severe misrepresentations, invariably accompanied by bad temper, sarcasm, and spite. These people are often extremely impatient. Their intuition becomes unreliable. Ah, so as you get more and more number twos, your intuition starts to get more blocked and unreliable. Why? As they misinterpret so much due to their sensitivity, and their confusion tends to place their confidence in the wrong people. They invariably overreact and become quite volatile and emotionally unbalanced. Wow. Extreme patience and understanding needs to be shown by family and friends, of which they rarely have too many, right? Though people with four number twos comprise only a very small portion of the population, they feature highly in marital breakups and bankruptcies or homes for handicapped people. Wow. How do they know this? How do we, are the studies and statistics being done? Ooh, I want to see these statistics and these studies. How do they know this? Where does this information come from? How do they know all this stuff? I am very intrigued in getting that answer. He says that they rarely make high public office. These people with four number twos, they rarely make high public office. Yet when they do, they find it difficult to be considered credible, thus sinking to the bottom quicker than they rose, unless they have some highly influential family strings to pull, right? Unless that nepotism kicks in, because they're really sensitive and their intuition is not really reliable because they're so sensitive. And then of course it says they're impatient. They can become volatile, uh, emotionally unbalanced, and all that. Overreactors because of their sensitivity and their intuition being clouded. And I get it. I see this. I could see this. It says the lives of people with four number twos are often very lonely, and many turn to drugs, alcohol, and other substances or habits. They can avoid such emotional isolation if they open themselves up to wise and appropriate counseling. They need to learn to firmly apply self control when it comes to emotional expression. Self control is key. To relax and meditate as needed and flow with the movement of life rather than be at variance with it. So, how do you do that? You know, again, you have a lot of tools at your disposal. The first thing is to read this and know and learn yourself. But knowing is just half the battle. Now you got to start applying it. And you got tools that you can use, right? We're talking about frequency and magnetism, everybody. I'm glad that you're here with me. Thank you for hanging in here with me, learning with me. And if you can, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell because we're only just beginning this book. You don't want to miss when I upload the next episode, right? So make sure to click that notification bell. Now, these people, yeah, they have to apply self-control. They gotta learn to meditate and relax. So how do you relax? Nerve herbs, herbs for the nerves, skull cap, blue vervain, things like that, chamomile, so that you can relax. It'll relax your body. You know what I mean? You don't even know how tense you actually really are, but it's gonna relax internally, start to relax, and get you into that meditative state. And that's what you need so that you can relax and just go with the flow. So vagal tone, nervine herbs, right? Herbs for the vagal tone, herbs for the nervous system to help you relax and get into a meditative state, right? Absolutely. Okay. Um, so what about if you have five number twos? Well, that's an extremely rare occurrence. It last occurred on December 22nd, 2002, right? That's five twos. The author said they only met one person with such a birth date. And though it was in a business environment, it was clear that the person was hiding a deep heartache and was confused in his own personal life. This confusion carried over into his business decision making and resulted in unnecessary bankruptcy not long after. Individuals with five twos are very likely to become totally reactive to their enormous sensitivity. Remember, when we're dealing with twos, we're dealing with intuition and sensitivity, right? With the number one, we were dealing with verbal self-expression or self-express. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a pattern, and as you heighten that frequency, double down on it, add more of the same to it, it kind of starts to unwind a bit, right? A little instability starts to happen. Individuals with five number twos can become very or totally reactive to their enormous sensitivity. They need extremely concentrated and devoted care and guidance, especially when very young, and they will try another's patience to the ultimate, just so we know. Okay? Not only will more birth dates occur with five number twos in this millennium, but we'll also find the occasional six number twos. The first one will be born on February 22nd, 2022, and the rare seven number twos, right? February 22nd, 2222, and December 22nd, 2222. May this book be in print so long. In the last century, birth charts with five number twos also had at least a 1 and a 9. But in this millennium, individuals with six or seven twos will not have such a minor counterbalance. So they'll need extraordinarily special counseling and care right from infancy, if possible, when it comes to emotional expression. Wow. And now we know. You know, we call this the age of Aquarius. I call it wake up season, right? The consciousness is rising. The number two is on the high self plane, it's higher than the physical plane. So when we're talking about wake up season, the age of Aquarius, and how our consciousness is rising, and we're in 2026 right now. So there's a lot of twos in the years that we're living in. We're in 2000. I was born in 1980. You know what I'm saying? It was the 1900s. You know what I'm saying? We're in the 2000s, 2026. So we can see we have a lot of soul plane numbers. When we're talking about the collective consciousness and how there's a lot of people with twos right now, so the collective consciousness is rising. Their wake up season and age of Aquarius is in full effect. Can you see that? Does that make sense to you? That's what I'm thinking as I read this. I'm like, that's interesting. That's interesting, right? So, yeah. Let's jump back to it. What about number threes? Not only is this the gateway number to the mind plane, let's pull it back up. The mind plane, the gateway, right? This is the first number that's on the mind plane, the number three. Ooh, we see the 369 is all on the top row. Tesla said, learn about the secrets of the 369 and you'll understand everything. You'll have the secrets to the universe. So 3, 6, and 9 are on the mind plane. We're talking about the conscious self. This is interesting. And the number 3 is the gateway to the mind plane. Okay. All right. But it's also the most essential of the mind numbers, for it governs memory. So number 3 is going to be dealing with memory. Whereas with 1s and 2s, the most ideal balance and power were found when either was represented on the birth chart as a pair, right? When you had 2 1s, it was like, ooh, this is great, right? It was like the more very fortunate people. And then when we had 2 2s, it was like, yeah, that's the ideal balance. Anything more than that, you're going to be more too sensitive. Not too sensitive. You're going to be a lot more sensitive. And this will also block your intuition because you're so reactive. You know what I mean? So, but it says when it comes to the number 3 and all the numbers higher than number 3, right on up to the number 9, the single number indicates the most desirable strength for itself and to assist balanced power elsewhere in the birth chart. Okay? Do I have any number 3s? No, I don't have any number 3s. Mm-mm. Absence of the number 3 on the birth chart does not imply mental weakness unless the person succumbs to laziness and or indifference. I'm going to tell you right now, I got a great memory and I practice it. I practice using my mind and my memory often, and I'm organized so that I can remember where things are at. Files, receipts, pictures, all kind of stuff. But I don't have a number 3 in my chart. So absence of that does not mean you're mentally weak unless you succumb to laziness or indifference. Generally, it indicates that the person needs to exert greater effort in the mental spheres, especially if their ruling number is not a mind number. And we'll learn more about that in chapter 7. Or if their sun sign is not a head sign. We'll learn about that in chapter 12. However, the tendency towards laziness when the 3 is absent must be recognized and corrected in the younger years, or else it will create great difficulties in later years. Okay. Okay. Well, my mom was a natural teacher and a reader, so maybe that is, you know, how I'm able to be here today saying to you I don't have a number 3 on my birth chart, but my memory is very strong. My mom was a teacher for sure. And I got my first library card when I was 5. I've been reading a long time. So, no mental laziness, right? What if you have one number 3? As the anchor of memory, the single number 3 on the birth chart provides a natural quality that will capably support people with it throughout life, so long as it's maintained. Any faculty that you don't use will atrophy, right? So if you don't use it, it'll just go dormant in many ways. This 3 makes it easy for them to maintain alert mental activity. The power of the 3 is a great natural aid to the young. It will assist them with their education, formally and informally. They'll maintain an active interest in life and the environment. As mental strength and agility are vital foundations for the cultivation of a balanced and optimistic understanding of life, these people generally have happy dispositions and can readily apply themselves successfully to most tasks. They usually possess an above average level of self-confidence, which also contributes to their success in life. Okay? So, mental strength and agility are vital foundations for the cultivation of a balanced and optimistic understanding of life. Okay? Now, what if you have two number threes? With this increased mental alertness comes a pronounced accentuation of one's imagination and increased literary ability. Hmm. Such power has to be carefully disciplined to facilitate its most useful and most balanced expression, and to avoid what might become antisocial behavior if allowed to run riot. Okay? To facilitate self-discipline, the practice of meditation is valuable, together with memory training and the development of intuition. This enables the development of more constructive thought processes. Otherwise, the highly active brain of the two number threes will place too much emphasis on imagination to the detriment of objective planning, investigation, and positive comprehension. In so doing, they tend to lose track of reality. Okay? So we're dealing with the mental, we're dealing with memory. Having a highly active brain, though, which people with two number threes have, it can also cause them to put too much emphasis on imagination. So now you're losing track of reality in so many ways. You're not as present because your mind is active and you're just going off, on tangents and hypotheticals and just imagination. I love having a creative imagination, though. I daydream and my imagination is wild, boy. I think even today, I went off on a hypothetical for about 10 minutes. I had to pull myself in, rein it on in. Come on. All this is not even real. This is a completely hypothetical situation, and you're just running with it in your mind. Well, what if this and what if that? I call it overthinking, but it's also imagination, you know. Most people with two or three threes on their birth charts have significant writing ability, though they rarely realize this without outside help. They need to be encouraged to set their thoughts and imaginings on paper, for this will stimulate a free flowing literary expression. In turn, such expression will help these people channel this potentially rampant quality and perhaps readily turn it into a lucrative source of income, right? You're imaginative, you know what I'm saying? You got a good memory. Hey, put that pen to the paper. You can get journals at Cedar Grove Herbs as well. So, journals, we have journals, sketchbooks, all that stuff. So make sure you swing by um, on your way to the chat room to talk about these things. Go ahead and add some things to your shopping cart, right? Use that Pure Love code and get 15% off. You want to be able to write. And hey, you might actually be a great writer and people like your books, like your writings. So get your journal, write your book, and send me some change. Donate to me. You heard it here first. Give me a little donation. Say thank you, Fee. Appreciate you. Just out here doing what you do for humanity to raise the vibration of the people. Help us be ourselves, right? All that. I wish well for all of you guys. I wish you all the best. Truly, you know. And we're learning how we can be better. How our life can actually work out better with this information. Now, if you have three threes with even greater emphasis on mental activity and expression, these people often lose contact with reality, resulting in isolation that brings loneliness. Three number threes. They create their own reality, but unfortunately, no one else sees it that way, thereby contributing to their isolation. Their fertile imagination is so intent on thinking ahead and conceiving weird scenarios that they often find it difficult to focus on the present and relate to other people. High imagination, their own reality. You know what I mean? There's a gift, but we can see the this and that of it. You know what I mean? We can see what happens if you're not balanced, right? With such an overbalance, these people find trust difficult to accept, and they're rarely relaxed and may become addicted to stress relieving drugs. Close friendships are rare for them, and happiness is very much a stranger in their lives. Aww. Meet us in the comment section if you have three number threes. You're not alone. I'm here for you. We're here for you. Okay, I'm here for you. So you're not alone. You have somebody you could talk to. Meet me in the chat room or, leave a comment. I answer all comments. Okay? Because I can see how this can be difficult. I can understand why. You got a great imagination. It's hard to be here. I myself often say, boy, I need to, I need, I need to stay grounded. My imagination also drifts away. I've had trouble with drugs and alcohol as well because I'm like not completely here. I can float away sometimes, you know. So I understand, and you can talk to me about it. I want to hear about it. What's going on in your imagination? You know what I mean? What kind of imaginative world have you created? Let's talk about it. You might could turn this into a comic book. You know what I mean? It's all kind of things you can do with these ideas. You just got to run into the right person that knows what to do with that. And I'm not saying that's me, but I'm saying I understand and we could talk about it. And, I like to fancy myself as somebody who can reach out. I'm building a network and I have people I can reach out to for different things. And I could share my resources. You know what I mean? So you never know until you say something, right? I don't know you exist. I'm talking. I hope you're there. You're out there somewhere. I hope you're listening. And if you are, please leave a comment. Um, because sometimes you're so absorbed in your mental adventures that you become oblivious to everything around you. And that can be quite disconcerting when people are trying to talk to you, right? You're in and out, in and out. Such unbalanced concentration does not equip these people to see things in their true perspective. Their introversion exasperates their distrust of other people, often leading to argumentativeness, right? A lot of arguing, a lot of trying to prove what you're saying, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of, hey, I know what I'm talking about. You just don't understand. A lot of that. That these people need patient, understanding, and caring assistance is patently obvious. The best way to provide this is to encourage them to focus on the present moment. Try to stay present. Okay, we're here on earth, actually. We got to learn it. That's the advice that was given to me today by my friend, right? Um, we got to learn how the game works here on earth. It might be why we're here on earth. We need to learn these things, you know? Stay focused, stay in the present. Okay, life is happening. The children need to be fed. Houses need to be cleaned. It's business as usual in so many ways. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you got to go out and get a corporate job and all that. I'm just saying you still are living here on earth and there's things you got to do throughout the day. Life is lifing, right? So these people need to be taught practicality through the conscious application of their hands and hearts to manual activity of an artistic nature. Wow, that's really good advice, right? Because if you're always off in another world and then off in a fantasy world, you need to be present though. So if you learn to do things with your hands, then you're actually having to be focused and present. Or if you have something that you're really into, like maybe you're into a fantasy, a metaverse for Legos. You want to build this Lego metaverse. And it's like, that's cool. Do it. Don't just be imagining it. Actually set your heart to making this a reality. So work on it. Your heart's into it. Use your hands and do it. You know what I mean? And this is good advice for the person who's always in a world of make believe. It helps ground you, makes you learn practical things. Learn how to be in this world that we're in, this earth, right? So four number threes, this unusual amount of threes can only occur during 1 month of any century. It last transpired on 3/31/1933 and will not occur again until 3/3/2033. So it's coming up. The excessive imagination and mental hyperactivity of these people can bring them to the point of intense fear, worry, and confusion. They have little or no regard for physical concerns, with a terribly impractical outlook on life in general. As understanding them demands so much of others, they rarely have close friends. Yet that is exactly what they need, most especially someone who will help withdraw their attention from the intensely mental towards more practical concerns. There's no other way by which they'll become balanced or happy individuals. The phobias and obsessions plaguing the person with four number threes will only intensify if they are acknowledged as real. These phobias and obsessions, they're not real. Such attitudes must be shown for what they are, figments of the imagination that clearly indicate severe deficiencies in these people's means of expression. They need to be encouraged and taught practical activities such as dressmaking, hairdressing, landscaping, interior decorating, and writing. They must become involved in the doing side of life, or they'll just drift away, escape off into their mind, you know? That's good advice. I'm glad to hear it. I hope you guys have learned something today, something valuable, something that you can use in your life, something that you can start applying, right? I hope this is practical information that you can do something with, right? So thank you guys for joining me. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. But when we come back, we'll jump into number 4. This book is 205 pages long. Right now, we're on page 28. We know there's a lot more we need to learn about, so stay tuned. Hope you have a great day today. I'll see you guys next time, okay? Wholeness and balance.